Welcome to the Custom Automotive Solutions YouTube channel, where passion meets performance and rubber meets the road. From the first turn of the ratchet to the first laps on track, we have you covered. We don't just fix cars, we build them and make sure every vehicle that rolls out of our shop is better than when it rolled in. Join us as we pursue our passion, because here at Custom Automotive Solutions, we don't just follow the road, we attack it. Should like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you. Spent some time hanging out with Cody as he puts this BRZ back together one bolt at a time.
All right, we're back at the grind. This is day 2. We're just finishing up.
Yeah, just buttoning her back up. We got all the major work done last night. Just refitting splash shields and the like. Making sure everything's lined up before I grab these bolts. All right, and then goes above. Go. All right, go up above.
On today's episode, Cody puts the BRZ back together like the big Lego car that it is.
Right there.
Dropped a little bolt.
Yep. I've learned after years of doing this.
In today's episode, Cody puts this little race car back together.
Just let it fall. Pay attention to where it falls. Continue what you're doing and then go pick it up.
Yeah.
I tried to catch the bolt, and then I've slapped the bolt across the shop, and then had to go find it later.
Have you ever dropped a pen or a pencil and you're like, ah, whatever, I'll pick it up in just a second. And then that second comes and you look down and you're like, where the hell did that pencil go?
Yeah, that's exactly why I stop everything and look and go, okay, right there.
Right.
And go back to work.
It somehow just picks legs and just like takes off to the other side of the room.
Those are 10 millimeters. So you must be getting that confused. I definitely keep those in a separate drawer and it stays closed.
Right, with like 100 copies of them.
I have 3 short sockets, all the same socket, 1/4-inch drive, and I've got 2 deep sockets, all 1/4-inch drive. Yeah, one year my mom was like, what do you want for Christmas stocking stuffers? Because they know that I don't like a lot of soup candies and stuff. I was like, you know what? 10 millimeter 1/4-inch drive sockets. And she took me seriously and I got like 5 of them.
You're like, oh, thank you, mother.
Yeah, pretty much. She got me that probably like 2 or 3 years after starting in the industry. And I've been doing this for over 15 years and I'm still got a stock of 10 mils. So it definitely works. Picking up where I left off yesterday. I forgot where I set the sockets down.
Classic.
Yeah.
So what's on the agenda after putting the splash guard? Shields back up.
Yep, putting the splash shields back up, and then after that, we'll drop it back down. I'll throw the wheels on the way down just to keep them at chest height. And once we get it all the way back down, I'll start putting the stiffeners back on and getting all the controls that I had to remove from these back onto them. And then we're going to drain his catch can, make sure that's empty, oil catch can, because with these cars you're pushing a lot of boost, a lot of fuel, and you'll push a lot of oil through the intake system. And so they run a catch can that basically just lets the oil fall into a cup before it reaches the intake itself. That way it doesn't go into the intake, because you don't want to be burning that oil. That's bad on the spark plugs. That'll foul them out faster. And right behind you. Ooh. I was like, where'd my gun go?
Yeah, and we just replaced this spark plug, so.
Yep, and if you're burning a lot of oil and you have cats, your catalytic converters, it'll also destroy those. Those aren't meant to have oil dumped into them. So that's another reason that's important to keep the catch can empty. Because this may be race car, but it is still street legal. It's got catalytic converters on it, so it meets emissions. All right, we're gonna go ahead and drop her down and get the tires ready to go back on. And then I'll come back around with the wheel lock key and tools to get them on. Because on the race car, or any track car, they'll want really long wheel studs. Lots of meat. Those are like twice as long as your average wheel stud. They want the wheel lug nut to have full thread contact all the way down. That way everything's tight, nothing's backing off. It makes it really easy to just throw the wheels on too, because they're not going to fall off like on a regular car.
Right, they look like those, I don't know what it is. There's like street cars that kind of look like the wheels are tilted just like they kind of are right now.
Oh yeah.
What is that all about?
From my understanding, like the actual purposes of it is it's less tire contact, so less friction, lower friction coefficient with the road, and it's easier to drift on the rears.
Oh.
On the fronts, if they're kicked out like that, like this, when you're drifting, you're putting a lot of side load on the vehicle. And this is actually perpendicular to the road when you're sliding. That's why that's done, so you don't go over on the outside of the tire. You keep full contact with the road up front.
Gotcha.
But I got a pretty strong feeling there's a lot of people out there that do it purely for cosmetics.
Right. It does look cool. I just like...
I always get out from behind those cars because of the main reason is lower friction coefficient. There's less tire touching the road. Mm-hmm. You know, this is not quite as bad, but it's closer to a motorcycle tire now than it is a car tire.
Right.
And I don't want to be behind that person in the rain if they're doing it just for looks. So that's my take on it.
I mean, especially in the rain.
Yeah, but I do know that out here we do have a very big drift scene, so it could be a lot of those guys that are just dailying their drift car. I know quite a few of them that do. Let's get these lock nuts. These are those 7-sided lug nuts. One per wheel, keep them on there. That way if anybody decides to get greedy, these wheels stay with the car. All right, these guys will be a 19.
Anti-seize, who knew? It's the enemy.
Oh yes.
And the battle never ends.
It's like that song that never ends. Just goes on and on, my friend.
Well, there goes our monetization.
Okay, well, he doesn't have hub-centric rings on this guy, which I'll demonstrate here really fast. Factory wheels will fit right onto the hub, and they'll fit snug, but these are aftermarket wheels, so they can actually slide around on the hub. So if you were to just run these lug nuts home, a lot of guys say, well, they're self-centering, they have a tapered end. Yeah, that's true, but when you run them in fast with an impact gun, it may not perfectly center, and one of these could be clocked slightly off, and this will actually cause a vibration going down the road. So to avoid that, still use an impact, just turn it down to the lowest setting. And just run it in ever so slowly, and as soon as it starts to pick the wheel up and get a little tight, just like that, we're done. You skip a lug, go to the next one, do the same thing. Now that we've got 2 lugs in nice and slow, it should be perfectly centered. Put that back on. We should be able to run these guys in with no issues now. And that will, what we can actually do really fast just to check it if you were unsure, is just spin the wheel. So now the wheel spins perfectly level. We're not seeing a bump. So you know that those lug nuts, this wheel is aligned onto the hub like it should be. Do that going around the car on the other 3 wheels, and we'll drop it down on the ground and stick a torque wrench on there. Make sure they're all set to the proper torque.
Easy peasy.
These ones actually fit pretty tight on the hub, which is, oh, I lied. They did fit okay. All right.
So satisfying. I know why like NASCAR mechanics are just like...
Yeah. Well, those guys have fancy tools. And that's another reason why they can do that, is just go zing, 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 because on the NASCAR cars, they do have these 2.5 inch wheel studs like this. Although I'm kind of partial to the ones that just have the big nut in the middle. I think that's cool. The whole wheel goes on the hub, and there's just a giant nut right here that holds the wheel on.
You heard it here, folks. Cody's partial to the big nut. Take a 3-minute long video of you putting on the tires. I'm gonna cut down to like 15 seconds.
Yeah, it's probably what it's gonna be. I know I went in the wrong order there, but these are not getting torqued down. This gun's only putting them to about 65, 70 foot-pounds right now.
I hate to get a comment and be like, you didn't tighten the wheel enough in the good way.
It's more when you torque them down. You just want an even torque load. Because believe it or not, over-torquing lug nuts, like one side, can actually warp your rotors. This is putting more pressure on one side of the metal. Mm-hmm. It won't just like, oh, drive it down the road, rotors are warped. But it can be a cause of it. Finish drop down here so we can throw a torque wrench on there.
If only every garage in America had one of these.
Yeah. Now, there was a shop I was working at years ago that bought the shop. It was an MG dealership back in like 1940 or 50, like the British manufacturer MG. And they bought it and just put it into their shop, and it became their detail shop. Well, they had a bunch of lifts in there that they didn't need because it was a detail shop. And they were from the 50s. And so they called shop equipment and they're like, hey, we got a bunch of lifts we don't need. Can we get some new ones? They wanted to put like one new lift in there for the detail guys in case they needed it. And they got rid of all the old lifts. And I was like, hey, what's shop equipment paying you for that lift? Because they'll like give it to shop equipment. They'll pay them to take it away. Or they'll pay you and they'll like take the lift. And they're like, well, they're really old, so they're only going to give us like $500. And I was like, what if I found a private party that would give you $500? And they would haul it away. And he's like, cool, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I called my stepdad and was like, hey, I got a lift for you. So we got out there with a truck, got it loaded up, and he had to do maybe, I don't know, maybe $800 worth of repairs. Yeah, one of the upright seals was leaking for the hydraulic ram for the lift. So it was pushing out fluid. So he got that fixed, and now he's got a lift.
That's incredible.
It's like less than $1,000, got a lift. It's old as hell. It picks up an excursion, so.
How much is like one of these brand new?
They range depending on the height and the weight ratio, but I think like the cheapest I've seen a brand new one is like $6,000.
Yeah, fuck that.
And that's smaller than the one that we're using for this BRZ. Like I would guess something this size, you're in like the 10 to 14 grand range. And I don't know if that includes installation and stuff like that. That's just for the parts. Like I said, I never bought one. I don't know if it includes it. Right now I'm just looking up the wheel torque on this guy.
What's the wheel torque all about?
Just the specification to what they want the lug nuts torqued to. And on this car, it's 90 foot-pounds. So that's what we're gonna set them to. I checked with the owner previously and he didn't have any special wheel torque setting that he liked to use, so we're just going off factory. That's what he's been going with. Oh. I'm not on the ground. Why does the wheel spin?
Is that a good clink?
Was there something over there? I'll pick it back up here in a minute just to make sure.
I know.
It could just be something settling since we had the motor lifted up and back down. Because there was nothing under the car.
Well, that'll be a good dramatic way to end the video.
Ting!
Yeah.
My bet was something was settling because we did have the control arms out and stuff and the suspension's finally being forced back into place.
If I was truly a dramatic YouTube creator, I could be like, hey, let me get a, you know.
Or, you know, start the clip with that and then cut into, what are we doing today?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea.
I see a lot of that.
Right.
I'm like, you bastards! And honestly, it makes me stop watching the video.
Aw.
But I know there's people that it hooks.
Right. Like,
Because there has been a couple times where I'm like, especially with car videos, when they flash up something bad like that and I have enough experience to realize probably what's going on in those 3 seconds they show you.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I want to see how that happened.
Well, a lot of it's like,
Yeah, a lot of it's kind of camera. Since we got it down here on the ground, I'm just gonna put in some of this air ducting that I removed yesterday. I didn't quite have a chance to reinstall last night. Some ducting we pulled off just to give the engine a little more room to come up and free up those coils, or at least give me a little access to them. As we saw yesterday, they weren't exactly free. You really don't want to run these clips home, so I'm just using a soft trigger press. You just want them tight. Those worm clips are really easy to just over tighten and they blow the whole clip apart. Let's go ahead and get these braces put back in. Get these strut braces back into place here. Reattach that harness. There we go. Come over to this side. Get this guy thrown in here.
what's the purpose of these guys again?
These guys just help stiffen up the chassis so there's not as much body roll and not as much flex up here. So it takes the upward force that would be coming from this corner of the suspension up to the top of the strut and braces it against the center of the chassis. So there's just less chance for this whole body segment to move under a heavy suspension load.
And why is that good for racing?
Well, with racing, you want the vehicle as tight as possible because compared to normal driving, you're actually using your suspension a lot. You're loading up the suspension and using it to help you corner with speed and maintain speed. And the more this car flexes, the less force that's being pushed from the tires to the road. So if the vehicle's flexing because it's force coming up from the suspension, that's less force being pushed down to maintain contact. So with a race car, you really want everything hard mounted. You want all the stiffeners you can get. You can definitely overdo it, but this kind of stuff is not. This is nice. Well, that just makes sure that all of your suspension downward force goes to the tires, to the road, and keeps the vehicle planted. Because you don't want half a second of uplift can cause the entire vehicle to wipe out. If you lose contact or if the friction coefficient lowers enough because of that weight, and the tires start skidding, as soon as the tires start skidding on pavement, the friction coefficient goes down a lot. It's really hard to regain that without dropping a lot of speed. Even if it's just for a split second, just and then keep going. That could be 5-10 miles an hour you lost. It could be a position. So it's when you're into racing and tracking the car, it's every little bit really counts. Got those guys back in. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this intake cover on, or the air filter cover real fast since it's just sitting here. Just the guy I removed yesterday, just to let that air filter come up a little bit. Because it is tight in here.
What's that for?
This is just more of a shield for the air filter itself. It just kind of helps channel the air from down below up to where it is. I'm not 100% sure it does a whole lot. It might be more for heat. It could actually do a lot more than I think it does for channeling the air. But regardless of any of that, I'm gonna put it back because that's where it was. Grab my tool here and get it tightened down. There we go. Okay, so now I can get these adjusters put back in. Yep, right up here. These are the adjustments for the shocks. This is an external fluid reservoir, and you can adjust the dampening here. This might be dampening and downward force as well if they're two-way. We're going to do this slightly different.
And what are these things like connected to exactly? Or
These actually, this is a hydraulic line. This is filled with hydraulic fluid. This line actually goes down and connects to the bottom of this strut because this strut is fluid filled. And so by adjusting the amount of fluid in each chamber, you can adjust the dampening, how quickly it compresses, and you can adjust how much force it's putting out downward when you're just sitting there. So that'll control this one. That one will control the passenger front, and there's actually one of each of these in the back for the rear struts as well. So definitely want to put those back where he had them so they're right where he needs them, because I'm sure those are not just randomly put there. That was probably a choice. So it doesn't look like a bad spot to have them. I'm just trying to find an open bag of cable ties because I hate opening new bags when bags are already open.
yeah, you had them all pretty secure.
Yeah, because if you were to just take one zip tie and wrap it around this, when you went to twist it to adjust, you could get this going on. And the setup that he had is he ran 3 of these. Getting this pretty much where he had it. I'm just gonna throw these on very loosely.
Just in case you have to adjust.
Well, no, I'll show you here in a second. Because that's the kind of the cool part about how he did this, or whoever installed these, which I thought was kind of neat. So you got 3 of these on here loosely. And then he took another zip tie and ran it underneath and around each one of the zip ties. So what that'll do, as soon as I can get it in here, is we can take this guy, tighten him down just a hair so he stops sliding all around on me. Then we take the zip tie that I put around it this way, and we're going to tighten it up. And it's going to squeeze the zip tie here underneath. So the one zip tie going around ends up going around this channel, and then gets squeezed above it there. If I can spotlight it for you. You get squeezed above the channel here, and that provides a much better secureness. And then I can take this guy and kind of yoink him down some.
Keeping the zip tie in place.
Yep.
Interesting.
Makes it nice and sturdy. So we'll go ahead and do the same back here. And I'll kind of move my hands in a sec here. I'm just being a little sloppy.
You're good. It's not you, it's this guy.
Oh yeah, the AC line. Gonna get him lined up here. All right. Just go ahead and trim all the tips.
Make it look pretty.
Yep, like we were never there. That's always the goal. I'd like it to look like I wasn't here, except some of the parts might be a little cleaner.
Who was this car fairy that was in my vehicle?
Oh man, talking about that. I had a good friend growing up, still one of my best friends. We had different upbringings. I think my parents were a lot more strict. It blew my mind one day. I was over at his house, and my family rules are you eat something, you know, you put your dishes in the sink. You at the very least rinse the food off the dishes and make them ready to go in the dishwasher, but we're supposed to rinse them and put them in the dishwasher. I'm over at my buddy's house, he makes me some lunch. We're sitting there eating, we're done. And like, I'm down there rinsing my plate and he's like, come on, dude, let's go play. He had Xbox upstairs. And I was like, dude, we gotta clean our dishes. He's like, no, man, just leave them in the sink. The magical dishwashing fairy will take care of it. About that time, his dad chuckles and gets up and goes into the kitchen and starts washing dishes.
Oh man.
I was like, Jesus, dude, that would have got me backhanded at my house. It's just something that's just stuck with me my whole life. Anytime somebody mentions a fairy, I'm like, oh yeah, the magical dishwashing fairy. To this day, I'm still not sure if he was like convinced there was a magical dishwashing fairy or if he was just being like a sarcastic little and he knew his dad did it. All right, there's one down. Two down. Last one. Oh man, it's almost like I knew what I was doing.
I hope so.
There we go. Got those reinstalled. Can't see shit. This one looks good. That's that, that's that. That's that.
Nice.
We're gonna go back up and just kind of see what that clong was. There's a chance it was a lift. I'll show you when we get it up in the air. Because the feet for the arms, they have a slot they fit into, but this car is so low that I had to spin the feet down so far that the threads of the feet actually lifted them out of the arms. So I had to kind of guess at the clock and then raise the lift up to the car.
Gotcha.
So it could have been one of those, just kind of sitting back down when the weight of the car shifted. It definitely sounded like it came from over there. Put this off the spotlight, there we go. That one was lined up good. That one's lined up good. That one's, no, it wasn't one of those. Was it a zap strap coming apart? All I can think is maybe one of these bushings, like the solid metal bushings in the control arms, settled in, or and none of the zap straps broke. Everything's tightened up. Nothing's loose. That's just me shaking the whole lift. I'd chalk it up to something was bound and got happy as we were lowering it down. We'll see if it makes the noise again. I'm just gonna chalk it up to the lift because the lift does have some noises. Yeah, it's just angry noises. I've been around enough to know that if it's not doing it multiple times and I don't see anything obvious, don't worry about it. If it's something with the car, it'll come out on the test drive once we get the suspension moving around. I think he said the best way to do this is just gonna be to pull the whole can out. 5 mil? Ooh, that's got some fluid in it. I can hear it. Race car applications like to use standard sizes, even though this car is metric. Yep, so definitely no reverse lights. I had lights on, car running, vehicle in reverse. It's like, dude, if he has raw fuel running out of his breather, we have a problem.